So recently, I spent some time in a week-long silent retreat here at the Abbey. After coming through a little point of time where I wasn't feeling well for a few weeks. And I decided to use the retreat, unlike most of my previous retreat endeavors, where I do a lot of pushing and trying to fill the retreat with every moment of something that I'm doing, pushing, thinking, actualizing, realizing. And then I get into trouble. So I wanted this retreat to be a retreat of ease and really of just taking care of myself. And what I wanted to do is to do a gentle self assessment on my mental health. And one of the things that I have really learned to appreciate is the analogy of the Buddha being the doctor, myself being the patient, and our teachers and the bodhisattvas and all the other whole beings being our nurses. Cannot tell you over the past 22 years how that has been one of my foundations for me to be able to not only connect with the three jewels, but to make an honest assessment of where I am as a patient. And because of last winter, when I spent some time with the Majjhima Nikaya, I got to know a little bit more about the way the Buddha thinks and how he related to sentient beings when he was in our world, how he took care of his disciples. So I decided as went into this retreat that I had officially designated the Buddha as my primary care physician. And every once in a while, because I have certain needs, he sends me to specialists like white tar and Chenrezig and green tar and Manjushri. But I have really come to take him on as my primary care physician. And this analogy plays, so I did a self-assessment. And a few things. One of the things, first of all, that is getting clearer and clearer to me over time, that given any moment, any any hour, any month, there is always some teaching, some point, some wisdom that the Buddha has for me to be able to take care of my mind, without exception. And that because my mind changes all the time, I have had to really take his guidance on finding numerous ways and approaches on how to deal with this mind of mine. It's never it goes up and down all over the place. And so I was asking myself, and I began the retreat, said, well, how much do you entrust your care in the Buddha in the first place, your doctor? Because I have to want to be well. I have to commit to healing myself. It is not the Buddha's responsibility, it's my responsibility. And how much do I care enough about myself, love myself, so I can heal myself? Because if I don't do that, if I don't have interest in that, and I don't commit to that, not only will I not be well, but I won't be able to take care and benefit sentient beings because continue to be a very, very sick person. So then I moved into more of my understanding doing this self-assessment is, why do I suffer? Why does anybody suffer? Well, one of the main reasons is that I don't want to take the medicine. Just checking in with my arrogance and my delusion is that I'm not unlike some of the folks who aren't taking the vaccine now. I believe I know what I'm doing. I don't want anybody to tell me that I don't know what I'm doing or saying that I'm actually harming myself. I don't want any advice, even from my doctor. The delusion of this mind, I am fine, leave me alone, thank you very much, mind your own business, as Venerable said this morning. I have had to make an assessment that mind plays out certain scenarios, get that mind going, and then I'm stuck there. I just don't want to take my medicine. It's sitting on the nightstand, it's sitting on my cushion, it's sitting in my notebook, it's sitting on my computer, and I'm not taking the medicine. However, what I have noticed in the past few years is that is getting to be a tiny bit less the rule and a little bit more, tiny bit the exception, that I'm starting to take the medicine a little bit more. And it really helps me to know my mind better. It grows my wisdom because over time I've gotten to see that there are particular, Dharma medicines that have been very successful. They do have proven to me over and over again when I take them, not just a little bit, but I take them over and over again, that they have begun to mitigate some of this. I'm just starting to think about using emptiness to counteract some of this clutching, this self-grasping at this self that I've got going. I've got some medicines that I've been able to take when the self-centered thought starts playing its sneaky trick on me, making me feel important. But most of the medicines I take on a daily basis are for the big afflictions, the ones that are just in my face. And also the mental habits and the behaviors that are just so old. I'm just so tired of them. So the medicine is starting to take form because I'm just getting so sick of it. And I take them over and over again. I go to the cushion. Actually, there are times when I can recall them from memory. When you look in the medicine on the bottle, it says, first sign of symptoms, take the medicine. Well, I'm finding out that there are certain things sometimes that once I see the symptom, I take the dose and I can cut it off at the pass pretty easily. So as Venerable, who's one of our precious nurses, says, Dharma care must be taken on a daily basis. And one of the things that I have come to realize is that I'm kind of a superficial medicine taker. I do a little bit like I cut the pill in half, or I mush it up with a lot of yogurt, so it doesn't really have the impact that it should have because it's kind of nasty and hard to take. So she says the dosage has got to be accurate. So not only do you get it sort of after it's gotten taking off, you're going to have to use a pretty big dose, but to start seeing the Dharma as a preventative measure. There's a way in which I've seen my mind under certain conditions, I'm building a certain level of immunity because I've been starting to use the same medicine over and over again. It's starting to mitigate, I'm catching it sooner, and I can actually see that I can get my mind into a certain state of virtue. I'm actually able to sort of bypass some of this old ways of thinking, some of this reactivity. So I've really used this analogy of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha with these three aspects of healthcare. It has been really helpful for me. So that was kind of the first thing that I did as I went into the retreat, is just do a self-assessment. The second thing that I wanted to do is that I decided not to go down to TARS because there's internet access. I didn't want any internet access during my retreat. I wanted to cut myself off. I had been watching way too much news, and it has been really impacting me a lot. However, on the second day of my session, I sat down and I just sat there. I talked to Buddha a lot in my head. And I said to him, how do you do it? How do you put up with my insanity, the sentient beings' insanity, our cruelty to ourselves and each other? How do you do that? How do you keep your love? How do you keep your bodhicitta? How do you keep the compassion in your heart? And that I had come to understand without falling into apathy or frustration, rolling his eyes, throwing up his hands and saying, I'm over this. I just forget them. Like Venerable has said over and over again, I started to say, how do you do this, Buddha? Of course, I'm using my own little mind as the context, so of course I don't know even where he's coming from. But what I came to realize was that I was struggling emotionally. I was emotionally tired when I went into that retreat. I've been watching way too much news. I was heartbroken. I was horrified. And I was running out of hope. I was falling into some despondency. And so I said, what do you got for me here to inspire me? So I had I wanted to go through the verses of Shantideva, just take them nice and slow and easy. And after I asked those questions in that session, I opened up and went through the first chapter, and there's this one verse that I think the Buddha actually tried to give me an answer. Since the sole helmsman of migrating beings, the limitless mind, has upon thorough investigation seen its preciousness, all beings wishing to be free from the abodes of migration seize this precious mind of enlightenment. So I went on a walk with this. It was a very long walk that day. I started off on love, went down to Bear Valley, went up generosity, over to fortitude, down to concentration, into Anattapindika, up wisdom. It was a long walk because I wanted to chew on this. How does the Buddha, how does he deal with us? How is he able to keep this bodhicitta, this limitless love for us? So with his own limitless mind that he has attained through thorough investigation, has seen his preciousness, understands the limitless potential of our own minds. He sees the preciousness, the freedom right there within our own minds. And that I think this is one of the main incentives why the Buddha's bodhicitta never wanes. He knows what's possible. And one of the things that I've loved about Buddhism is that being raised as a Catholic, there was always my understanding that God and Jesus were way up here. Don't even think of becoming Jesus. Don't even think of becoming the Christ. Don't even think of becoming God. You will throw yourself into the hells forever. Buddha's saying, honey, you got it. You can be just like me. I've done it. You can do it. I have total confidence in you. Don't be afraid. And his great potential is fueled by him seeing the truth of our potential. And his compassion is continually nourished by the fact that we don't see it. There's a suffering that is unnecessary, needless. He sees it, he understands the nature of reality, and we are clueless. From his mind, if that doesn't stir up compassion and bodhicitta for Buddha, nothing will. So that's one of the things that helped me with this. He's the sole helmsman of migrating beings, this limitless mind, who upon thorough investigation has seen its preciousness. From my side, how I get frustrated when I look at sentient beings is I really care about them. I want them to stop harming themselves. But they tell me, none of your business, stay out of my life. I don't think you're right. Just, go away. And after a while, I roll my eyes. I get frustrated and say, screw you, whatever, I'm gone. His bodhicitta ensures that he never throws up his hands. As he watches, as Khenser Jampa Tekcho says in Transforming Adversity into Courage, as we throw ourselves into the abyss over and over again due to our ignorance. So I'm coming up, I think it was Joyous Effort out of Anathapindika, and I said, okay, Semke, just imagine not personalizing or taking offense to anybody's afflicted states. Never defending yourself, never trying to fix them, never retaliating, no matter what they say or believe about you. Instead, your heart is in a continual state of love and compassion. I know your little mind can't hold this, but just imagine, you have a very good imagination, Semke. You can deal up all sorts of dramas. Let's see if you can deal up this drama that imagines you having the capacity to not react, when people do these, come at you, or you perceive them coming at you, or they react. He sees the erroneous view, this thought of an inherently existent self, looking for happiness in this life, spending all our time trying to put aging at bay, trying to put sickness at bay, trying to hold off death, strategizing, searching, looking life after life for this non-existent ultimate happiness, when in fact we are creating the causes for it and not even knowing that we're doing it. Once again, the Buddha is saying, Semke, this is how I cannot give up on you. This is why I cannot give up on Kyle, give up on Mr. Howley, give up on Mr. Cruz, give up on anybody, is because I see that your incredible efforts to attain happiness, a non-existent where you are, is doing nothing but causing suffering. So then Venerable says, here she says, seeing the happiness of just this life from our side is all that matters. That is what's in our mind all the time. We don't think of ourselves, she says, do you think of yourself as a transmigrator in samsara? Do you see yourself born under the influence of afflictions and karma, and that due to that you are subject to birth, aging, sickness, and death right now at this moment? Not a clue. I don't have any idea of perceiving myself as a refugee, life after life, having no home, looking for my home, can't find my home. Look at where I'm looking. I'm looking in the horror fields, and I'm trying to find my home. So Venerable continues, and she says, do we look at this world that it comes about due to our ignorance? So why are we in the situation we're in? It's due to the ignorance. And she says, we don't automatically see this. It's not one of our defaults. We go to, let me try a little harder, let me manipulate a little more, let me strategize a little bit more. We don't say, whoa, let me look at this, let me see. What is the cause of my suffering, really? So the Buddha, in his wisdom, from what I'm seeing from this verse, is telling us to look at the big picture, that no matter what we think about ourselves, no matter what we believe about ourselves, while we're under the influence of afflictions and karma, in our heart of hearts, and this is where I think the Buddha potential The Buddha nature is influencing us at that very, very subtle level. When I sit with myself in this quiet space, I can see the yearning for a freedom that doesn't end. I can see the yearning for freedom, not just for myself, but for others. This little niggling, clear light, cognizance and awareness, it's not gone. And every once in a while, he says, that's in there. You just have to remove the defilements. You have to cultivate the causes to reveal that. And so to seize this limitless mind bodhicitta and to look at the world through this lens, and Venerable says that'll help us look at this world and this life in its true nature, which is empty, and the potential we have within it, which is to fulfill this Buddha nature. So when I think about that, and then I put it in the bigger concept of how much the Buddha loves and cares for us forever, not just when I'm a good girl, but forever, I found as I went into the retreat and continued with the verses, I could really kind of relax into this, not get so down, to touch my good heart. And in the quiet of this retreat, I could really see that despite the heartache and sometimes getting frustrated with what's going on in the world, I don't want anybody to suffer. I could really touch into that seed of bodhicitta in this retreat. A tiny, tiny seed about halfway through saying, I don't want to suffer and I don't want anybody to suffer. And what that verse is saying, seize that, nourish that, water that, fertilize that. And we all have this, and we got to start believing in that to be true.